When the client comes to you in a disempowered situation, for a moment, you start looking at it and tell the client, hey, you are on a hero's journey now. Up to this point in time, perhaps you have not really looked deeply into yourself, and you have listened to other people and found various ways to tackle your problems, and those haven't helped you. Now you need to look within yourself, and let me just be there as a guide, as a coach, as a mentor, and to be able to suggest to you what may be the possibilities, or for you to throw things at me and for me to respond. And that's what the role of a coach is. And the moment that happens, you start integrating, not separating. You are separating him or her, the client, from the illusionary state that the person was into an integration of the state that they need to be.
We are here. So for those of you who are here, hello, and thanks for being here. This is our last colloquium of the year, not our last webinar. Our last webinar is next week with Cindy. But what's kind of cool is that today's webinar and then next week's webinar will connect. So if you want to see more of Cindy, which of course you do, like if you say no, then honestly, we'll have a chat later because what's wrong with you? But if you want to, when you want to see more of Cindy, come back next week, because over this and next session, we'll be talking about hero's journey. As with all of the colloquiums, so the third week of the month or third Wednesday of the month, we talk about more foundational topics in coaching, not necessarily, dumbing it down or anything like that, just things that we all need to kind of understand and know before we dive deeper. And hero's journey is this thing that pops up very early in the coaching or becoming a coach world. So today we're going to talk about that from a foundational perspective. And what's really cool is that Neha is here to ask all those questions. And there are many reasons for that. One of them is that she herself started her journey towards being a coach. She's 3 weeks into coach training or 2?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Awesome. So you'll have all the questions that maybe the rest of us are too afraid to ask, or kind of figure, you know what, at this point, I really can't ask this. I've been coaching for 10 years. Maybe there's some hero's journey things that I really should know, but I don't. Anyway, Cindy and Ram will enlighten us today. And then next week, Cindy is going to, as usual, partner with another master coach, and they will dive deeper into hero's journey and give us coaches more guidance around how to explore that with our clients. So start today and then come back next week. And I will hand this over to my lovely panelists today, Cindy and Ram and Neha. But I just want to share a little anecdote, because it wouldn't be a webinar if I didn't try to share something. Hero's journey is a really funny thing because, English is my second language. Well, it feels like a first language now because I've been gabbing in English for most of my life, but it's my second language technically. And I first came across hero's journey in my favorite class I've ever taken. And it was in my senior year of high school, my last year of high school. And the class was called Great Books. And what was really cool, it was like, it was an option that we could do for an English elective versus just regular English class. And for those of you who aren't familiar, Great Books is an actual format of discussing and exploring books. And it was really cool because every single day, we sat in a circle in the class, and different students were assigned different parts of the book to then guide the discussion around. So it was like a daily book club. It was amazing. And that's where I first learned about the hero's journey. And in my mind, it was always like the literal hero that's in a book. And, later in life, I took an acting class, and that came up again. And then I took a script writing class, and it's this hero's journey came up again. And in my mind, it was this thing that was connected to the creative world, even though in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, wait, like this connects to how stuff happens in real life, because after all, art imitates life, right? But it's silly because it took all these years until, you know, I met Ram and got introduced to the world of coaching, that hero's journey kind of reframed in my mind. And I understood it that, you know, I'm a hero in my own journey. And there are multiple journeys that I'm a hero of throughout my life. And everyone has their own hero's journey. And it's just a name that we give to show the kind of commonality that we have as humans. So I just thought that was really, really cool. And I think you'll think it's really cool if you don't know much about it. And if you know much about it, you will, I'm sure, learn something new too. So Ram and Cindy look like they're going to maybe smack me. Joke's on you. We're not on the same continent, so you can't. So Neha, do you want to take over and get us started? And I'll just keep fidgeting here in my sequence.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Magda, for bringing all this shininess today. It's awesome. It's great. It's great to see that. And it's pretty early for you, huh? It's like pretty early for, let's say.
I have animals. I've been up since 6.
Okay, fair enough.
For those of you who have cats, they don't subscribe to any time zone changes. And for my cats, and my dog, for him, it's let's go outside. For cats, it's feed me now, human. So I wake up usually to either a cat butt or a cat face going meow at 6 a.m. So very important side note.
Friend here too.
Okay, and scene.
So hero's journey. Anyway, so thank you, Magda, for that lovely introduction. And I'm so excited to be here. I just want to say I've been super excited about this all day, knowing that I get to just be here and ask all the questions that I want to Ram and Cindy and just like pick their brain about various aspects of coach training, of the hero's journey, and just like philosophize and yeah, just be curious. And hopefully hopefully everyone listening in and joining in will also benefit from some of these questions. And of course, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat window and we'll pick them up. So I suppose the first place that we can start is just by exploring what the hero's journey is, like what the definition of the hero's journey is. I did take a few little notes here, and essentially what I have understood is that it's a journey to realize what your life purpose is, right? And how you're going to fulfill it. And it's almost as though we are called to something, and then we go down a certain rabbit hole and we explore it. And then in the process of going through certain changes and difficulties and transitions and perhaps meeting certain types of people, we understand things about ourselves. We understand things about where we need to be, and what are the opportunities that we need to seek. So here's what I've understood so far. And you know, there was a very interesting assignment that we were given before our first coach training session was even, you know, before the session itself, was the universe questions. And the essential question was, what does the universe want you to be at the end of this course? And I think the hero's journey is perhaps about exploring that question. It's like, what does the universe really want you to be? Not necessarily at the end of a course, but just in life in general, perhaps in different aspects of your life, in your family life, in your career, or, you know, in life in general. What kind of human being do you want to be, or does the universe need you to be? So am I on track? Am I way off track? Please help me out. Let's talk. Ram, would you like to go first? Magda has something to say.
No,
I was going to invite Cindy or Ram to jump in because they're saying they're
yeah, Cindy first, please.
Sure.
Yes, I love the normality that both Magda and Neha shared, because even though it's a myth or a beautiful story about, I'm going to say it in simple language, prince going out and rescuing a princess somewhere, and on the journey to do that, the prince would meet different challenges or obstacles or dragons, whatever it is, and how the prince would overcome that. And perhaps along the way, meet guides, mentors, people that would help to take the next step to get to the princess. But all that starts with something inside us. So something stays inside us. And the something could be over a period of time, longer, like you keep thinking about something, like starting a business, for example. You keep thinking about it, and finally one day you take that dive in. You go into it and you start it and you do it. Or it could be an instant thing, like today you got up and decided today is the day. Today is the day I am going to do it. So Ida's journey can be something now, can be something adventurous that you were thinking about for quite some time, but it generally starts inside you. There's something there. And a bit later, we'll talk about what is that something that spurs us on to go on to this adventure or take a leap of faith. But for now, I'll hand over to Ram to we say on Hero's journey.
Yeah, thanks, indeed. Thanks, Neha. Smart. Look, when I first came across Hero's Journey, probably a few decades earlier, it was always referred to as the journey of the Buddha, the Christ, the Mahatma Gandhi, the Mandelas, and so on and so forth. And as I delved in deeper, like Magda was saying, it's not about necessarily someone who's seen to be some kind of a hero, but it's every one of us who has a hero's journey. And more I delved into it, it was not really even a life's journey of a hero, but it could be a day's journey of a hero. What is it that we are doing every day, day by day? I mean, like, for instance, the way traditionally the hero's journey is represented as a circle, I think that's wrong, completely wrong. And you, Magda, and I have been discussing it. It's an endless spiral. It may expand from day to day, it may expand from decade to decade, it may be expanding from life to life. So you are reaching some point that's only a gateway to go into a larger space. And I think the right way to look at J.Cambell's hero's journey is as an endless spiral, ever-expanding spiral, rather than some kind of a closed circle or a cycle. And also, more and more, I'm disenchanted the way that the hero's journey is being typically represented in a circle, as they have various names, 16 names, slaying the dragon, the belly of the whale, and temptress, and all that nonsense. They're all metaphors for one thing or another, some of them used by Campbell himself, some of them used by other people later. And typically, usually, the three stages they divide that into are what I call the separation, initiation, and the return. And I would like to reframe them, rephrase them in a typical Coacharya 3A as the first part being the awareness or the awakening, the second part being the action, and the third part being the anchoring when you go back to your roots, as it were. Yeah, so this is a slide that we put together, and known, unknown, all these kind of things. But usually there is also a three-way division of separation, initiation, and so on. These are, yeah, we can take the off here. It's not really relevant. When you look at it in this different perspective, we are really talking about a situation where pretty much on everything that we do, we start doing it without an awareness. We think we are awake, we are not. And I'm digressing a bit. The word Buddha actually means awake. And why he was called the Buddha is just that he was not just having his eyes open, but he was truly awake. He was truly aware. Most of us believe we are awake, but we can never be called the Buddha because we are not aware. We are not conscious of what we are doing. And then we say we are mindful, we are caught in the sensory perspectives, which is not being aware also. So at every point in our life, be it moment to moment, be it hour to hour, be it day to day, we start doing things without awareness. And at some point in time, there's an awareness of what we are doing comes in. Pretty often, is this awareness in line with a larger purpose or passion? So the first question for anyone who likes to look at hero's journey, I would have is what you are doing in line with your passion? Is it in line with a purpose? If it isn't, you are still asleep. All you're doing is what a robot can do. And if you're doing coaching the same way, then any AI-based robot can do that as well. So the very first step there is about the awakening part, the awareness part. And then you become a master at some point in time. And that is what the second step is. It's about the initiation. You reach a high point, as it were, is zenith. And it's not about the label of being an MCC or an MP or being a Ram or Cindy or whoever, but it's truly being the master of the spirit of what you're doing, be it coaching or be it whatever you are doing. Is it in line with your purpose? Is it in line with your passion? And this is what we run as a program as you create your future, which ties up with it. How do you explore and find out what that passion or purpose is, and how do we move towards that? And you said, yeah, we start our courses now, which I started doing a couple of years ago, starting with this question: what does the universe want you to be? And it need not be at the end of this program. It can be at the end of every day if we ask ourselves before we go to sleep. What does the universe want you to be tomorrow? And then ask at tomorrow's night, as it were, what could I have done differently had it been to be the way that the universe want me to be? And so if that kind of a reflection happens within us every day, almost like a self-reflective coaching kind of space, we become more aware, more on a hero's journey. And at some point in time, we reach a point where we truly are in sync, aligned with what we need to be, what we wish to be. And at that point in time, it's no longer about ourselves. It's not about my personal glory in terms of having reached a point. And that is where the return starts. The return is about, do I then devote myself to serving others? And not from any grandiose, selfless, great point of view, but purely from a selfish point of view. That is when I fulfill myself. The more I focus on myself, and again quoting the Buddha, the more I would suffer. I would never reach fulfillment if I were not to break through that and to be able to combine what we do, what I do, not only for myself, but also for other people. And that completes a circle, and therefore you reach a point. And then at some point in time, you find that that's not enough. You expand, move into another cycle, another spiral, and you keep on expanding. So that's a way that I would like to look at a hero's journey, as an endless spiral, which starts with awareness or awakening, moving into action, and then anchoring that with serving other people. And then within that, when we come into a specific coaching journey, we can take that into more detail in terms of what is the role of that being from time to time being referred to as a mentor in the hero's journey. Because if you see, very often people think there's only one point at which the mentor comes in, because even in the Campbell's journey, if one were to read it carefully, there are several times the mentor comes in. And that's the role of the coach. When we work with somebody, looking at the other's journey as a coach's, at the hero's journey, in what way can we be that mentor, in this particular case, a coach? I don't see a difference at all between being a mentor and a coach. ICF does, I don't. But how do you complete that cycle? So I'll stop here.
Thank you, Ram. That's wonderful. Cindy, I think you have something to say.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, because a lot of people, many, don't, including myself, you don't realize you're on some kind of a journey while you're on it. Like you feel that I'm doing what I love and I'm keep doing it, and don't realize you're on some journey until perhaps somebody asks you to pay attention to it. You know, what did you do? And then when you start to trace, you realize, oh, indeed, that's what I was doing. So I think that alludes to taking those simple steps every day and keep moving forward into the purpose, the passion, the thing you love doing, versus standing still, right? Or making some kind of, I'm not doing it today, or I'll do it when I do that. You know, when I do that, then I'll do that. So it's about, I think, just taking that step sometimes in a very authentic way, like towards something. You know, you're always moving towards something. Maybe it's your shining light from outside, but from inside and outside connecting together. If you want to call that purpose, that's okay. It is also when you start on a journey, or when you want to start doing something purposeful, or an awareness that I'm going to start this. I think there's something also inside you around a trust that it's going to happen. And I think it's that trust that helps you to continue. There's continuity in the trust. And I think it's multiple layer trust here in yourself, in others, like the mentors, guides, whatever showing up, and in the destination, wherever you want to go. Of course, the destination doesn't need to be static. It could evolve and change. But there's a multi-layer of trust that happens inside you. I can do this, and you go ahead and do it. Yeah. Maybe hope also. This is hope, right? What do you think, Nia?
Yeah, I love that you brought it up, because these themes are recurring for me lately, and it's kind of forced me to look at this, especially the way the question is phrased, like, what does the universe want you to be? And the universe is with the capital U, you know, and that question can be a little bit confrontational. Can be a little confrontational in terms of like, okay, what exactly is the universe? What is this universe, this capital U universe? And I think when I look around me and I look at the people who perhaps have faith in something, perhaps it might be religion, it might be something totally different, but there is some kind of faith in something greater than themselves, perhaps. And when you talk about trust in yourself and hope, and I think somewhere these things probably combine into something, to this understanding that there's something greater than yourself, that there's something going on here where we are on this planet and in this universe, where it's beyond what we can understand, and maybe we need to sort of surrender to it a little bit as well, and have a little bit of trust and faith that there is some purpose, there's some bigger purpose and meaning behind it. What do you think? Cindy, you are muted.
Okay, I can. I love what you said, because it's acceptance to the journey doesn't happen like overnight. Because this is awareness there. Ram was talking about 3 A's. First, you gotta like walk this awareness journey, and then you realize at some point, there's acceptance here to this new thing. If the new thing is, what does the universe want, or how does the universe want me to show up or want from me? There's a bit of awareness and a bit of trying and testing and trying and testing, and then, haha, like an aha moment, and I got it. And an acceptance now begins to happen.
Yeah, I don't know if this is part of it, but certainly when the idea came up to join a cohort, Magda ran the idea by me a few years ago actually, and I was just at this real resistance to it. I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. I've just come into this new role, and I really nail this, and I have so many other things going on. There's so much on my plate. I don't know if I can do it. And similar reservations came up this time as well. It was like, oh, this is such a big commitment, and I want to make sure I do it justice, and all these things that we think about before we embark on something big. It really helped that the facilitators were Smita and Tracy, who I work closely with and who I know so well already, and it just made the whole thing easier for me to just go into my first session. Magda made it very easy for me. She was like, oh, just go in and see what it's like. If you can't handle it, we'll figure it out. We'll see what we need to do, but just start. And it's so amazing how quickly I felt like I needed to be there and that I belong there, and that this is the path I need to be on. So firstly, thank you, Magda. I know I've thanked you before, but I got to do it here as well while we're talking about this. And I think sometimes we've all experienced this, right? We all want to take on something big, and then we build it up in our heads, and then we finally do it. It's like, oh, this is what I was so resistant towards.
So can I jump in? Because Neha, would you mind bringing that image up again? So like I said in the beginning, like I was hoping we would also do a bit of a foundational look at this concept here today, because so far it sounds like we're, exploring lots of wonderful things, but let's also assume that's like, people even know what the hero's journey is. And it's what you just gave as an example, Neha, sounds like you're on a hero's journey for yourself right now in your journey as a coach. And, whenever I come into these webinars, I always go through kind of like a mixture of emotions, because I'm a very practical person. I'm a very analytical person, and I'm a fixer. So I always try to understand things and then either be able to apply it or do something about it. Like, that's who I am. I'm hands-on. So even with the hero's journey, when I thought about this webinar to begin with, I was like, literally, you can have a hero's journey you go through in a day. Like, to me, it was this framework also, almost, not necessarily like, the philosophical exploration that Ram talked about. Like, it was this thing that literally we all go through. And, you talked about hope. When you said the word hope, what I thought about was, when I learned about the hero's journey's application to, like, me and humans, I thought, oh, it's okay if I struggle. It's okay if I have to figure things out. It's okay if someone comes in and like helps me. We literally all go through this all the time. So for me, this was more like a validation of I'm part of this human tribe. And that I'm not the only one who goes through these steps. It almost made me feel more included. It almost made me feel less special in terms of, I don't just suck with my my journey. Everyone has this. So Cindy, like, I would love for you to maybe kind of talk through this, spiral, and make this as accessible as possible, because it's a powerful tool, no matter how you look at it.
Okay, let's do that then, because Neha beautifully brought it in when she spoke about what I'm now going to put into the first step. So the first step is what J.Cambell calls the call to adventure. And in this call to adventure, I'm going to use Neha's words here. She was saying, there's a lot going on around me, and I don't know whether I want to start this now. Is the timing right? And a whole lot of things happening. The call to adventure makes us stand out from daily life. Like we're doing something different. It's a separation process. Like this is my daily life, but now I'm going to take this big thing, right? So it actually makes us stand out. What causes a separation where you're going to do something, it's been a calling inside you, whether it's immediate or for a long time, and you engage in it. You take that first step. So that's the call to adventure. And sounds like adventure sounds like a big thing. It could also be a calling without adventure. But whatever it is, let's call it call to adventure. You're now on the journey. And on this journey, it's like you're doing something big. Big for you. It doesn't have to be about other people's bigness, but it's you taking this journey and you the hero in your journey. So you are doing something big. The second stage, it almost feels like it's away from the normal, away from your normal. Like Magda, a lovely example is you as CEO of Coacharya. We've seen you slay many dragons or take this call and beautifully execute your call, no matter what, right? And I know you don't like the dragons, but talk a bit about that, your first step.
Sorry, don't like the dragons. I love the dragons. I don't like slaying dragons.
Well, you don't like me saying.
Here. I will not be slaying any dragons because they're the coolest creature that ever existed. What was the question?
Let's say challenges.
Facing challenges.
Yeah.
What do? I try to be logical, honestly. This is something, what Ram has taught me is that disengagement can be a powerful tool in my toolbox. And it doesn't make me a cold person. It just makes me be able to take ownership and power over my own emotions and reactions. And I'm still quite reactive. I know that. But I've reached a point, I think, that at least I know when I'm being reactive. So it's now a conscious incompetence. And now I need to change that into a conscious competence and be more responding versus reactive. But what I try to do is I try to remove myself, separate myself from that challenge, from my reaction to it, from others' reaction to it. And I analyze and I make trade-offs, because sometimes you have to make a decision quickly, you have to face a challenge quickly and deal with it quickly. It's not slay dragons, but sometimes you can just take your lightsaber and cut off their head, and sometimes it's 1,000 pinpricks that's gonna kill the dragon. So you have to be able to kind of tell of what the approach is and make that decision. And it's been interesting, because my entire life until I got into this world, I've had the feedback from people, both family and work, that I tend to be, oh gosh, I'm very diplomatic because the adults are here, so I'm not gonna swear, but that I was the a witch, let's just say, because I'm cold and I'm direct, and I make the decision. So I've been working on that part, and kind of getting more balanced in my approach is how I've been able to overcome challenges. But I think for me, what's worked in most of my dragons is trying to detach, analyzing, separating the problem into pieces, and understanding like what is within my control and what isn't. And the things that are in my control, I'm going to address. And the things that are not in my control, if they don't matter, like I need to do my best to put them aside, because the reality of life is that I have to deal with this thing that's in front of me. No one else will. So that kind of is what gets me through. You are muted again, Cindy.
Stay there for a minute, don't go away. Because, of course, you've overcome challenges, you've had some people help you, and as Neha said, she had a chat with you and with Tracy. So all these guides begin to appear, or you call upon them to provide help, right?
Yeah.
So you must have had all of that. But there comes a moment when you cross the threshold, or change starts to show up in you. The unknowns begin to become known, as in your diagram, right? The first part is known to you. You're going onto this journey, it is known. Then as you cross the threshold, a whole lot of changes begin to emerge. And unknowns. How do you manage it when those unknowns start to emerge in you? The transformation. Go for it.
I think it depends what the unknowns are. Again, this is, I think, when you cross that threshold, for me, when I cross that threshold, I should say, my strengths kind of go into hyper mode, and my weaknesses also go into hyper mode. So because I tend to be so analytical and practical when it comes to facing challenges, for me, the unknowns a lot of times are how people are feeling about things, or how they are responding to my actions. Because like, I don't hold grudges. I firmly believe that the past is in the past. I just want to get things done and move forward. That's me. I know that that is not all people. So I definitely take for granted how baggage sits with people, how their emotions come up or don't come up. Because I also know that I communicate too much, maybe sometimes. But I've been to the part where like I used to hide things and it didn't serve me. So like, I'm done with that. I'm not going to revisit that. So, but I know that about myself. That doesn't mean that that's how the rest of the world is. So for me, like I do get caught off guard quite a bit by, people's humanness, I should say. And I understand it. And the biggest part for me that I struggle with is I get annoyed. I'm like, oh my God, there's no time. This needs to be solved. I don't have time to cuddle people, but I know that sometimes I have to. So that's what I struggle with. Otherwise, and then that's where, you guys come in to play a lot. That's actually where I do reach out to the mentor type figures. I had a great example with Ram the other week, which we won't talk about the specifics, but Tracy and I called him up and basically had a vent session, to put it nicely. And then Ram was like, huh. And he paused and asked us some questions, and all of a sudden I understood the problem better and I addressed it completely differently than I was going to 5 minutes prior. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but I think to me, both the strengths and the weaknesses like get heightened when I hit the unknown.
So there are some strengths, uniqueness about you that you're using to help yourself. Something's internal, something's external, like mentors and aids. And of course, I think maybe a bit more there shows up to like your own, what's the word? Like your own beingness around, this is how I deal with it, around, here's a problem, I just want the solution. So perhaps it's your own way of processing and beingness that shows up, something inside, something in the center around processing, and of course, externally. Which kind of then leads to the next step around something reveals itself inside you, after this transformation. Either the newness, the evolution, or I'm moving now forward. And I like it when you say the decision is made. I'm good. I make a decision. And then from what we know of you, you walk that decision.
Indeed.
Ram, you're very quiet. Say something.
Yeah, well, I want to go beyond these labels. We are just interpreting what we think that J.Cambell said. In my understanding, the separation that we talk about is not really separation. If we really understand it, it's integration. Finally, we come to an understanding of who we are. We awaken to that knowledge and we start integrating. And then when we talk about a supernatural aid or a mentor, is a word that Campbell uses. And let's take a coaching journey. Let's get practical, as Magda was saying earlier. We are still talking about generalities which are about individuals. But let's say I'm a coach, I'm working with someone. The coaching journey is a journey into the unknown. There is no known about it. The moment we think that there is something known about it, we lose the plot. So the separation of the known and unknown in the hero's journey, to my mind, is extremely artificial. Or if there is a known part, the known part should be a very, very small segment, maybe 5% or whatever. Where the moment you start integrating into a larger concept of where we need to be, where the client needs to be, then we get into the zone of the unknown. And at that point in time, the mentor can be anybody. In fact, there is a famous myth or the Hindu mythology about this person called the Dattatreya, who's a saint. And he comes across these 12, not even beings, objects, a tree, a piece of stone, something else, an animal and a bird, and so on and so forth, each of which helped him to learn something. Each of those become a mentor for him. And therefore, we don't need to put the mentor as a specific person or a being or anything supernatural. It is anything that in your life can create a greater awareness in you. And the way then you start looking at it, the moment you start integrating, you're actually crossing the threshold. You've crossed the threshold the moment you started listening to that voice within you, the voice of awareness, the consciousness within you. And that is what a coaching journey is about. When the client comes to you in a disempowered situation, for a moment, you start looking at it and tell the client, hey, you are on a hero's journey now. Up to this point in time, perhaps you have not really looked deeply into yourself, and you have listened to other people and found various ways to tackle your problems, and those haven't helped you. Now you need to look within yourself, and let me just be there as a guide, as a coach, as a mentor, and to be able to suggest to you what may be the possibilities, or for you to throw things at me and for me to respond. And that's what the role of a coach is. And the moment that happens, you start integrating, not separating. You are separating him or her, the client, from the illusionary state that the person was into an integration of the state that they need to be. And the universe is not anywhere out there. It's not some unimaginable, of course, it's a formless being, but the universe is represented in every single thing that you meet in your life every day. From your child, from your sibling, to your parents, your partner, to whoever it may be, or your enemy, for example. You can learn a lot from people you don't like. Every time Magda vents about somebody, I tell her to understand what you can probably learn from them. And that's what I do. If I find that there is something wrong with somebody, my immediate reaction, response is, I'm projecting myself in that unpleasantness. So what is it in me that is causing that unpleasantness about the other person? It's not about the unpleasantness of the other person. It's about my unpleasantness. And that's a theory of the Ho'oponopono. In many ways, the Ho'oponopono is a journey of a hero. It's a hero's journey. Then you start realizing that you are responsible for everything that is negative around you about yourself. And then you are into this journey of the unknown. It's not philosophy, it's practical. This is something that you can do every day in your life. And then you cross that threshold of, I would call it ignorance, unawareness, into awareness, from separation to integration. And you again seek the help of that mentor or people around you in terms of where I have reached. Is that really the place that I wish to be? Is there more to achieve? What is the reality of that situation? And then you start understanding that Everest that you have climbed, or the CEO's position that you have achieved, and I know this from my personal experience, is all ephemeral. As the Buddha called it so beautifully in Pali, it is anicca, it is impermanent, it doesn't last. You think wealth lasts, you think health lasts, better think again. And they all disappear. And so you need to find something more permanent. What is that more permanent? And again, this is not philosophical. This you need to apply in your daily life. And that permanence comes from your relationship by and large, and your ability to be fulfilled in terms of what you do for other people, how you care about other people. And that's really what the hero's journey is in a very, very simple way. How do you find that what fulfills you? What sustains you? What makes the impermanent relatively permanent at this point in time for the duration of the time that you spend on this planet? I think that's what the hero's journey is. And then if you want to apply it in any which way, it's okay. But then we can split it up into the belly of the whale, the slaying of the dragons, the temptress, and this and that, whatever it is, fine. We can find dozens of explanations. Instead of the 16 that they have, you can create 160. That's fine. But let's look at it in a simple coaching journey. What are we there for? The only reason we are there for is to make that into a hero's journey for our client. That's our job, unconditional positive regard and empathy, to make that a hero's journey, to help them awaken themselves, to become aware of themselves, and to be able to come to that point where they become aware of what they need to do, and how do they then integrate themselves with that by sharing it with other people. And that's all that needs to be done. So it's nice to romanticize hero's journey. I think J.Cambell did a great job in terms of picking up all these mythologies and putting them together and so on and so forth. But we can go a little bit beyond what J.Cambell has written. I always keep saying that when you reach mastery, the one thing that you learn are the rules, and also how to break them and when to break them. So I would suggest whoever is listening now, don't look at hero's journey in that narrow framework of even that endless spiral that Sylvester has created so beautifully. And okay, break that. Find something else. Find another metaphor. Find another way of how that hero's journey represents yourself in you. And a lot of you are talking about the universe, whether the universe is within me, whether the universe is outside me. It is both. Damn it, you are part of the universe, and the universe is part of you. It's neither within you nor is it outside you. It's you. You are the universe if you choose it to be. And that's where the trust happens. The moment you believe that you are the universe, you trust yourself, you trust other people. It's like in coaching. ICF used to have this. I don't know why they have removed it. I couldn't find it again. And I searched for it when I wanted to tell my cohort. There used to be a beautiful saying out there. Mastery happens when the coach trusts oneself, trusts the client, and trusts the process. And the same thing in a hero's journey. You trust yourself, you trust others, and you trust the universe, and trust what you're doing. And you are on a hero's journey. You are on a roll. And there are no dragons to slay. You only have dragons to hug. because the dragons becomes cats and puppies. They become lovely beings, absolutely. Like that woman in the, what is that, Game of Thrones, where they are her children. So it's exactly the same thing. That's what a hero's journey is about. How do you turn your enemies into your friends? So everybody is your friend. Oh, I'll stop here.
You know, Ram, you spoke about coaching, and I'm sure you want to come in. Just to say, when in coaching, and we're asking clients that lovely question, what is it the one from the session? It's always visionary. What do you want to accomplish? There is something visionary, something more. And of course, you break it down per session to work on it, to help the client work on it. But that's like walking a journey for some of the clients, for the coach too. When coach is in coaching, it's walking a particular journey for yourself. And of course, you know that lovely question we ask clients, what support or resources would you need? These are those guides, mentors, help appearing all over the place for you. What support, guide, resources would you need as you're doing X, Y, and Z, as you're taking the next part of the journey? Because in this journey, of course, we all will have this. You've heard Magda talk about it, Neha talk about it. We'll have challenges, we'll have setbacks. It's all a part of hero's journey if you look at the diagram that Neha put up. And bearing in mind that we also want, as Magda said at the beginning, keep it foundational. If something's foundational. So you are going to experience some challenges, setbacks, and along the way, transformation happens when you look at what's current and what's beyond, and you help your clients go beyond. Transformation happens. And of course, this question on supported resources doesn't only happen at the end of a session. It could happen anywhere where it shows up or you get a sense to ask it.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cindy. I'm aware that Ram, you need to go very soon. But I did have one question I really wanted to ask both you and Cindy. And my question is, what advice would you give to someone? And you know, since I'm part of one of those people, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting on their coach training journey?
Yeah, I'll finish and then probably I need to leave. I think this also sort of relates to the question that Vinita has. What makes any journey qualify as a hero's journey? Look at every journey, everything that you are doing as a hero's journey. And a hero's journey is nothing but a transformation, like Cindy just now mentioned. And somebody mentioned Otto Scharmer. The move from a closed mind, a closed heart, a closed will, to an open mind, an open heart, an open will is a hero's journey. And that's what is a theory, that's what is transformation. And that is what we need to keep looking for at every stage. Because there are so many things that because of our limiting beliefs that we have closed our minds to, we have closed our hearts to, and we don't do anything about. We come across it every day. Now I see, I don't know, I send some of them to Magda. Atlantic magazine, one of my favorites, a very, very thoughtful magazine. There's a whole lot of articles now coming up against, oh, we are depressed and this, that. Come on, give me a bloody break. You sitting in the US and all comforts, and you talk about this nonsense of, oh, you know, my child came back and said this, and it made my wife's eyes well up and stuff like that. What about the millions of people in many countries who don't have a meal to have? Did you ever think about them? When you talk about what you are going through in the COVID, when will it open your eyes? When will it open your heart? And that's the hero's journey that we need to talk about. And if we are able to do that in every context and every coaching that we do, or self-coaching that we do ourselves, if we sort of do that, I think it'll make a huge difference. Okay, and that's really what a hero's journey is all about. Thanks, and I'll take your leave. Bye.
Thank you, Ram. Wonderful. I was lucky enough to get on a call with Cindy last week and ask her this very question, like what advice would you give to someone who's starting on their coach training journey? And her answer has really stuck with me. So Cindy, would you like to tell everyone what you told me?
Yeah, I'll say two things here, Neha, because ever since you want to say more too. So the first thing I want to say is, I get a sense that you must have thought a lot about it, all of you, before you became a coach. You gave it a lot of thought. You said yes, no, yes, and signed up somewhere and became a coach. And when I do mentoring, I see the hero in the shine of the eyes. When a coach talks about how they are learning and what they are discovering about themselves and how they are transforming. And all this looks like it's for you, but we all know the reason why you wanted to become a coach, same as all of us, to help serve others in service of clients or client or clients, and for the larger systemic doing good. And the second part I want to say, when you tell a coach, like an evaluation, you have passed, you can see hero's journey all over them. The eyes light up, the face looks different. You can see the last part, the transformation into something new. That butterfly that's beginning to spread the wings and go forth into something new. So this kind of, if you want to call it, J.Cambell does, a rebirth, something new, an evolution or a start of something new. So I see it all the time in the coach, this kind of hero's journey showing up when they talk. I'll stop there, Neha, because I have a sense you want to say some things.
Sure. Thank you, Cindy. Yeah, I think last week, one thing that really, solidified things for me that yes, I am on this journey is when you said to me, just make sure that you show up and you do everything. You do all the assignments on time, do your work, do your peer coaching, give it 100%. Don't just leave things to the last minute. Like we all have a tendency of wanting to take on different things. And I think anyone I speak to, even in the peer coaching sessions that we did in our cohort, and everyone, as they were sharing, everyone was like, oh, we have so much going on. I think we're all, I'm feeling overwhelmed, or like I'm feeling bad that I'm not able to prioritize my family, or there's something or the other which is related to taking on a lot of different things. And it really helped me when you said, just go all in, just do it all, give it your all. That really stuck with me. And the second thing that really stuck with me was you saying that it's not, that I'm not starting from scratch. I may feel like, I felt like I'm so new to all this, and it's all so theoretical and conceptual and all that kind of stuff. And it made me feel a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready and if I belong here and all these things. And you said to me that you're not a blank slate, you're not a clean slate. You already have a lot of the skills that are needed, and all you need to do is enhance them. And the process of coach training is just enhancing, becoming aware of the skills and enhancing them. So again, it kind of goes back to our unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence journey, right?
You know what, Neha? I'm gonna just something you just said jumped out at me. So I guess Cindy said it, then you repeated it. Whatever. Cindy told you to jump all in, right? To go in all with everything you have. That's like that going from the known to the unknown, right? And that takes bravery. And someone asked before in the chat, what makes a hero's journey a hero's journey? And to me, I think it is jumping into the unknown, whatever it is, whether it's something tiny or a life's journey of a career, whatever. Jumping into the unknown, I think, is that crossing that threshold is what makes it a journey and what makes you the hero. Because if you knew everything and Still jumped in? Okay, great, whatever. But like you're going in there without having all the answers. That's scary, that's exciting, but it's also brave. So to me, that's what I took away from that. So all of you who are, jumping into these heroes' journeys of becoming a coach and then working with your clients, I think it's an act of bravery, an act of, I don't know, it's a gift. That's all I have to say.
Join us next week because we're going to look at some tools and resources and do some exercises around hero's journey.
Awesome. So those of you who are coaches, which I think is many of you today, will get some very, get a masterclass actually, isn't it, Tracy? I keep saying Tracy because I talk to Tracy all the time. Tracy, if you're here, you have ruined me. I keep calling everyone Tracy. Cindy, every webinar with you is like a masterclass, isn't it?
Yeah, our webinars are masterclasses. Please come join me next week.
Thanks, everyone. To those of you who are celebrating anything, happy whatever you're celebrating. I'll continue celebrating. I plan to wear sequins for as long as I have sequins in my wardrobe, and I have sequins in my sewing room, which is a lot of sequins. So you'll probably see me in sequins next time, and hopefully maybe Cindy will join me in that endeavor of silliness during silly season. So thanks everyone for being here, and yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks, Neha.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. And thanks, Ram, wherever you are.